Hello and welcome back to English Unlimited Podcast, the place where we break down English for you, turn tricky concepts into clear, actionable practice, and hopefully give you the confidence to speak. I'm your host, Charlie.
And I'm Jamie. It's fantastic to be back with you, diving into the real core of language acquisition today.
Absolutely. We have a really crucial deep dive today, and it's focused entirely on that struggle that, we know so many of you are facing is the intermediate plateau.
Oh, yeah, the plateau.
We get the messages constantly. You've been studying English for years, maybe since high school. Maybe you've used a dozen different apps. You can probably read a whole business report or, even a novel.
Right. Your passive skills are strong.
Exactly. But then it comes time to actually open your mouth and, communicate in a real-time conversation, and your brain just feels like it locks up.
Yeah, it just freezes.
Yeah, that effortless flow, that fluency, it feels like it's stuck just behind a wall. You know the vocabulary, but the words just won't assemble themselves fast enough. So it's so frustrating.
That frustration is completely universal. It's the thing that drives so many learners to quit right before they achieve mastery. We often talk about this gap between passive knowledge and active skill.
A gap, yeah.
As the founder of Speak English podcast observed, the traditional academic approach. It often has you practicing grammar. But all that passive knowledge, it doesn't necessarily translate into confident, real-time conversation.
It just stays in your head.
It does, and that's why the ability to speak is considered so crucial, because it reflects those direct communication skills you need in high-stakes, authentic situations like, work meetings, traveling, or in academic settings.
Right. So our mission today is to give you a complete shortcut, a way to bypass the need for, an expensive conversation partner and to use the time you're already spending listening to things. Well, like this show.
Exactly.
We've found the scientific proof that your listening time, when you apply it correctly, is the secret key to unlocking your speaking ability, even if you're practicing completely alone.
The data is really compelling on this.
Yeah, we're going to dive into a major controlled study that shows listening to podcasts dramatically improved speaking skills in 4 key areas: fluency, accuracy, pronunciation, and vocabulary.
And we're going to give you the real game changer technique, which we call shadowing. This is how you convert all those hours of passive listening time into active, meaningful output practice.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Output practice.
We'll show you exactly how to structure it and why this simple, maybe surprising thing, the availability of a text transcript, is absolutely indispensable to making that technique actually work.
And we'll even get into how to choose between that, energetic American style or that wonderfully understated British tone.
We will indeed.
You are going to walk away with a personalized, high-efficacy study plan. So before we dive into the data, do yourself and us a massive favor. If you're loving the insights, please subscribe to English Unlimited Podcast and like the episode right now. That little click supports our mission to keep providing this deep, free content. Let's unlock your speaking confidence together.
Shall we jump straight into the science then? Because the evidence, which comes from a controlled experimental study on English as a foreign language students, it's really compelling.
Let's do it. We've got this fantastic source material which contrasted podcast-based learning with older, more conventional methods. But wait, before we get too deep in the data, I keep hearing this term, EFL. For someone who's just starting out, what exactly is the difference between an EFL student and, say, an ESL student? Does it really change how they should study?
That is a great question, and it's actually crucial for understanding your own learning context. The distinction rests entirely on geography.
Geography.
So, EFL stands for English as a foreign language. These are students learning English in their home country, where English is not the dominant language of society or commerce or media. They're using their native language pretty much all day, every day.
So their English exposure is purely academic or intentional. They have to actively go out and hunt for opportunities to hear authentic English.
Exactly. Their learning environment is a kind of a closed system. Now, ESL stands for English as a second language. These students are learning English in a country where English is the official, or at least the dominant, language, like if you were studying in London or New York or Sydney.
Okay, so I think I've got an analogy here. The EFL learner is kind of like an astronaut training in a simulator, right? They know all the mechanics, but they don't have that real-world pressure.
That's a great way to put it.
And the ESL learner is already on the moon. They're breathing the atmosphere, so to speak. So for the students in this study, they were EFL learners. which means those podcasts were absolutely vital for providing the authentic language exposure their local environment just didn't have.
You've completely nailed the analogy, and that scarcity of exposure is precisely why the choice of study material is so important. When we say that this choice is crucial, which it is, we mean it's the non-negotiable factor that decides success or failure.
Okay, hold on. You use that word crucial. I hear it all the time. But how is it actually different from just saying something is, important or necessary? Is it just a stronger word?
That is a fantastic linguistic drill down. It's more than just strength. It's about consequence. Important suggests something has high value, but crucial. Crucial implies that without this one thing, the entire structure collapses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Think of a bridge. The steel beams are crucial. If they fail, the whole bridge falls down.
Yeah.
The paint on the bridge might be important for aesthetics, to prevent rust, but the bridge still functions without it. The beams are the point of failure.
I see the intensity difference now. It's a matter of survival, almost. Okay, so give me an example. How could I use it in a more academic context thinking about this study?
Certainly. A formal example would be the timely acquisition of transcripts was crucial to the experimental group's success in improving pronunciation scores.
So it wasn't just a nice little add-on.
No, it emphasizes that the transcripts were a required element. Without them, that specific success wouldn't have happened. It wasn't just useful, it was foundational.
Got it. And what about a more casual, real-world scenario, like that student you mentioned earlier? Beatrice, was it?
Yes, Beatrice.
Yeah.
She's a perfect real-world scenario. She was an EFL student preparing for a scientific job interview in London. For her, mastering the specific language of her field was absolutely crucial to landing that job. It wasn't just helpful, it was the one deciding factor between getting the position and staying in her home country.
Wow. Okay, let's try a quick role play with that. Imagine I'm Beatrice's friend. I'll start Diane. Hey, Beatrice, you've been studying so hard. Don't forget to relax a little before the interview.
I know, but I can't. I have to go over these technical terms one more time. Getting the vocabulary perfect is crucial.
More important than getting a good night's sleep.
Honestly, yes. They can forgive me for being a little tired, but if I can't explain my research accurately, I have zero chance. This vocabulary is the key to everything.
I love that. It just conveys such a strong, non-negotiable sense of necessity. And focusing on that necessity, the study had some truly significant findings.
It absolutely did. And that brings us to another one of our key vocabulary words. The study showed that students using these podcast methods saw significant improvements in their speaking ability compared to those using older, more conventional methods.
Okay, let's dissect significant then. Does it just mean big, like a big improvement?
Not quite. That's a common confusion. Significant means something is sufficiently great or important to be worthy of attention. Or, in a scientific context, it means it's statistically meaningful.
So how is that different from, say, the word major?
Another great question. Major often relates to scale or size, like a major city, a major problem. Significant, on the other hand, relates more to impact or relevance. Something can be small but still have a significant impact.
Oh, I see.
And in science, statistically significant has a very precise meaning. It means we can be confident that the change we saw wasn't just a random accident or a fluke. It was caused by the thing we were testing. In this case, the podcasts.
So it wasn't a fluke. The results are reliable. That's a huge deal. Okay, give me some examples of significant, maybe a formal one first.
A formal scientific one would be, the p-value was less than 0.05, indicating that the results were statistically significant.
Right, I've seen that in papers. What about a casual one?
Casually, you might say, switching to a new coffee machine has made a significant difference to my mornings. It means the difference is noticeable and important to you.
I can relate to that. How about a funny one?
The dog's decision to eat an entire bag of glitter had a significant impact on the living room rug for the next week.
Huh. Yes, it would. Okay, historical.
Historically, the fall of the Berlin Wall was a significant event in 20th century history, signaling the end of the Cold War.
And philosophically?
Philosophically, one might argue, the realization that happiness is a choice, not a destination, can be a significant turning point in a person's life.
Those are fantastic. And you often hear it with certain words, don't you? Like collocations.
Yes, exactly. You'll hear about a significant impact, a significant improvement, a significant amount, a significant other, which means your main romantic partner, or a significant finding, like in our study.
Fantastic. So we have a study with significant findings showing that podcast-based learning is superior to conventional methods. Let's dig into that word now, conventional.
Conventional simply means based on or in accordance with what is generally done or believed. You can think of it as a synonym for traditional.
So when we talk about conventional learning, we're talking about what? Grammar drills?
Yeah.
Memorizing word lists from a textbook?
Precisely. It's contrasting the new podcast-based method with those traditional methods. Grammar drills, memorizing isolated vocabulary, relying heavily on textbooks, or very scripted, unnatural-sounding dialogues.
So it's the expected way, maybe the way our parents learned, but not necessarily the most effective way anymore.
Exactly. And the nuance here is that conventional isn't always negative. A conventional wedding is just a traditional one. But in the context of innovation, it often implies something is outdated.
Let's do a few examples for conventional.
Sure, a formal one. The architect rejected the conventional building materials in favor of more sustainable options. A casual one. I'm not a big fan of his movies. They're also conventional and predictable.
Okay, a funny one.
My cat ignores all the conventional cat toys and prefers to play with a plastic bottle cap.
So true. Historical.
Before the discovery of penicillin, the conventional treatment for infections was often ineffective and dangerous.
And a philosophical example.
Many great thinkers have challenged the conventional wisdom of their time, pushing society to evolve. It's often about breaking from the norm.
Perfect. Now that we've really set the stage, let's look at the 4 pillars of speaking proficiency that they measured in the study. The podcast group showed a significant jump in all 4. First one up, fluency.
Right. And fluency is so often misunderstood. The number one misconception is that it just means speaking quickly.
Okay, so if it's not about speed, what's the core characteristic? Like, how do I know if I'm fluent or not?
The core characteristic is the smooth, effortless flow of speech. It's about speaking without undue hesitation, without unnecessary pauses, or frequent self-correction that breaks the rhythm.
So I have an analogy for this one. Fluency is like water flowing in a river without obstacles.
That is the perfect analogy. When you speak fluently, the flow of your words is natural and consistent. The water isn't stopping and starting, it's just flowing.
So the comparison here is really fluency versus speed. You can speak rapidly, but if you're pausing every 3 words to correct your verb tense, well, you're rapid, but you're not fluent.
Exactly. Fluency prioritizes communication continuity over momentary grammatical perfection. And the study provided really concrete proof here. The experimental group, the one using podcasts, they saw a major jump in their average pre-test fluency score of 5.5 to a post-test score of 7.2.
Wow. A jump of nearly 2 full points on their scale.
Yeah.
That's a profound difference in the real world. That means they've dramatically reduced the number of times they stop and start, and that must have boosted their confidence like crazy.
Absolutely. Now, how does this process actually work in the brain? This is where we need to talk about the 2 theoretical engines behind this success. The first is a big one, Krashen's input hypothesis. You might have heard it called the I+1 concept.
The famous I+1. Okay, I've seen that everywhere, but what does it really mean for someone who's just trying to pick a podcast to listen to?
Stephen Krashen's central idea is that we, as learners, progress when we receive language input that is just slightly beyond our current level of competence.
So the I is my current level.
The I stands for your current level, your input. And the +1 is that next logical step up. It's the new stuff you can understand because of the context.
So if I listen to something that's way too easy for me, I'm not learning anything new. I'm stuck at I.
Correct. You're just reviewing.
And if I listen to something that's way too difficult, like, I don't know, a university lecture on quantum physics,
Yeah.
I just get discouraged and I quit.
Exactly. You get overwhelmed. The analogy I love is this. Learning at I+1 is like lifting weights that are slightly heavier than you're used to. It's challenging, but it's doable. It makes you stronger. If you only lift the weights you can already lift easily, you don't grow. If you try to lift something impossibly heavy, you just hurt yourself.
That makes so much sense.
And this is where the 80% rule comes in, which some sources like Preply mention. You should be aiming for podcasts where you understand about 80% of what's being said. You get the main idea, you can follow the conversation, but you're still encountering new words and new structures that are your +1.
So the input has to be comprehensible, but still challenging.
Precisely. Which leads us to our next keyword, comprehensible.
Okay, I think I get what comprehensible means, but I've also heard the word intelligible. What's the difference between those two?
That is a fantastic and very precise distinction. Intelligible usually refers specifically to audibility. Can I physically hear and identify the words being spoken? Is the sound clear?
So, like, is the podcast recording good quality?
Exactly. Comprehensible, on the other hand, refers to meaning. Do I understand the message that's being communicated? So I might hear every single word you say perfectly clearly, your speech is perfectly intelligible, but if you're talking about advanced calculus and I know nothing about it, the content is not comprehensible to me.
Got it. One is about sound, the other is about meaning. Okay, let's do a quick example loop for comprehensible.
Sure, a formal example. The legal document was written in such dense language that it was barely comprehensible to a non-lawyer.
Very casual one.
He speaks so fast, he's barely comprehensible. I wish he'd slow down.
A funny one.
My toddler's explanation for why the wall is covered in crayon was passionate, but not entirely comprehensible.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
How about a historical example?
For centuries, Latin texts were not comprehensible to the general public, which gave the clergy immense power.
And a philosophical one to wrap it up.
The goal of a good teacher is to make complex ideas comprehensible without oversimplifying them.
Perfect. And you mentioned a resource that's built around this idea, right?
Yes, the podcast News in Slow English is built entirely around this principle. They make global news comprehensible by simplifying the language and slowing down the pace, ensuring that the input stays firmly in that vital I+1 zone for intermediate learners.
That's brilliant. Okay, so comprehensible input is half the equation, but you can listen perfectly, understand everything, and still freeze up when you actually need to speak.
Ah, yes. That's where the second theory comes in. Swain's output hypothesis. This is all about active production.
Swain. Okay, what's the big idea here?
Merrill Swain, a linguist, argued that simply receiving input isn't enough for true mastery. Learners need to be pushed to actively produce the language themselves.
So listening is passive, but speaking is active production. But how is production different from just, say, imitation? If I just repeat what I hear, isn't that production?
That's a really important distinction. Simple imitation, like repeating words immediately after you hear them. That's great for pronunciation. It helps with the muscle memory in your mouth. But production is about creating novel sentences. It's about summarizing an idea in your own words, having a conversation, building an argument. It's the act of using the language to communicate your own thoughts.
And that's what forces you to actually test your knowledge.
It forces you to test your grammatical knowledge, find the gaps in your vocabulary, and figure out how to structure your thoughts in English. The analogy I use is that of completing an electrical circuit. Input listening gives you the energy, the power, but output speaking is what completes the linguistic circuit. It forces you to apply that knowledge and make it your own.
I love that. So you need both. Podcasts provide the authentic input that Creation talks about, which fuels the brain. But then we need a technique to force the active production that Swain says is necessary.
Which brings us perfectly to the three other pillars of proficiency where the podcast group showed such significant growth. Let's look at accuracy.
Accuracy, that just means being correct, right? Hitting the bullseye on grammar.
That's the analogy, absolutely. Accuracy refers to the degree to which a learner's speech matches the accepted grammatical rules and structural conventions of the language. Are you using the right verb tenses, the right prepositions, the right word order?
And the comparison, as we talked about, is accuracy versus comprehensibility. You can be understandable even if you make mistakes.
Exactly. You can be perfectly comprehensible if you say, yesterday I go market, but you are not being accurate. Everyone knows what you mean, but the grammar is wrong.
And the study showed that just listening to podcasts helped with accuracy too, which is kind of amazing. It means listening to correct, authentic speech helped them internalize all those patterns.
It did. The effect size was moderate, but definitely substantial at D0.9. Constant exposure to grammatically correct podcasts helps students recognize correct language patterns, like subject-verb agreement or correct tenses, and it helps them master more complex sentence structures. It provides a constant, high-quality model for the brain to absorb.
Okay, next up, the one everyone seems to focus on. Pronunciation.
Yes, the melody of the language. Pronunciation refers to how sounds are articulated, but it's more than just individual sounds. It includes intonation, the rise and fall of your voice stress, and rhythm.
And the study showed the largest effect size here, a D-value of 1.4. That's huge. So podcasts are phenomenal for improving how you sound. Why is such a massive jump in pronunciation specifically?
The source material links this to something called Schmidt's noticing hypothesis. The theory suggests that learning only occurs when a learner consciously notices the features of the input language.
So it's not enough for the sounds to just wash over you.
No. When students continuously listen to authentic, high-quality audio through podcasts, they become more aware. They start to notice the nuances of pronunciation, the rhythm, the little ways sounds link together, things that they previously just ignored.
So it's not enough for the sounds to just enter my ear. I have to cognitively register them and compare them to my own output. I have to notice the difference between how the native speaker says bottle of water versus how I say it.
Exactly. That constant, high-quality audio exposure is what triggers that noticing mechanism. It actively encourages you to improve your own speaking motor skills to match the model you're hearing.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The final pillar from the study, vocabulary range.
Right. Vocabulary range is basically the breadth of words a speaker possesses and can actively use in a conversation. The analogy here is the size of a painter's palette.
Ooh, I like that.
A small palette has just the basic colors. A wide range means you have many shades, many different colors, which allows you to be much more nuanced and precise in your expression.
And the results were highly significant here, too, right? The experimental group saw their vocabulary score jump from a 5.2 to a 7.4. Why?
It comes back to that word authentic. The materials they were listening to weren't scripted drills from a textbook. They were listening to real conversations about diverse, real-world topics, from true crime to culture to science. And those conversations naturally contain a wide variety of specific, contextual vocabulary, not just the 100 most common words you learn in a beginner's class.
This study really makes a powerful case. It suggests that this kind of podcast-based learning is way superior to conventional methods. But now we have to get to the practical part. How do we actually bridge that gap from listening to speaking, especially when we're practicing alone?
And that brings us perfectly to our next section, mastering solitary practice.
Yes, this is what I'm excited about.
Because this is the practical solution. The idea that you need a conversation partner is actually a deterrent for many learners. It's expensive, it can be hard to schedule, but as the English Leap podcast notes, there are highly effective techniques for solo practice that can achieve amazing results.
And the number one technique, the one that's recommended across almost all of our source material for solitary speaking improvement, is the shadowing technique.
The one and only.
Tell us exactly what this is and how it works.
Okay, so shadowing is a high-efficacy technique where you, the learner, listen to audio and you immediately repeat what's being said. You're trying to maintain a distance of maybe just half a second behind the speaker.
So you're literally speaking at almost the same time.
Almost. And the key here, the intent is not just to repeat the words, that's just parroting. The goal is to match the native speaker's pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. You're trying to copy the music of the language, not just the lyrics.
The analogy we had for this was being an echo,
Yeah.
but an echo with intention.
Exactly, and the comparison is really important. Simple repetition is a memory exercise. Shadowing is a muscle memory and a neurological exercise. You are training your mouth, your tongue, and your ears to work together simultaneously, preparing your brain's motor function for the speed and the rhythm of natural speech.
This sounds fantastic, but I can easily imagine a learner doing this for hours and just getting stuck in what the expert report called mindless parroting. How do we make sure it's actually effective practice?
That is the critical question. And that's why we need a clear structure. The report lays out 4 critical steps for effective shadowing.
Check one.
Step 1, initial passive listening. Before you even try to speak, listen to the short piece of material you've chosen several times without talking. This is crucial for just understanding the overall rhythm and the basic meaning. You need to have the template in your head first.
Okay, that makes sense. Get the lay of the land. What's step 2?
Step 2, scaffolding via transcription. This is the non-negotiable step. The learner must use a transcript or some kind of text to follow along with. It's the visual confirmation step.
Why is that so important? Why can't I just do it by ear?
Because reading the transcript while you're listening provides your brain with the same information through 2 channels, your eyes and your ears, which significantly enhances retention and understanding. It also allows you to see things your ear might miss, like identifying challenging phonetic patterns, silent letters, and all those linking sounds between words that often confuse learners.
That ties directly into our next key vocabulary word, context. Transcripts show us words in context.
That's absolutely right. And context is such a powerful idea in language learning. The definition is the circumstances that form the setting for an idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood. In language, it means the surrounding words and the situation that give a word its specific meaning, and critically foreshadowing its specific sound.
How is context different from just the situation?
A situation is the immediate event. For example, our situation is that we are recording a deep dive right now. Context is the broader surrounding information that gives that situation its meaning. For example, the historical context of the research we're citing helps us understand why the findings are so important.
Got it.
And for language, a great linguistic example is the word read. R-E-A-D. It has two different pronunciations depending on the tense, right? I read every day versus I read that book yesterday. Only the surrounding context tells you which sound to use. The transcript provides that visual context to confirm what you're hearing.
That is a perfect example. Okay, back to the steps of shadowing. We've done our initial listening, and we've got our transcript ready. What's step 3?
Step 3, speed control optimization. This is a practical tip. If you try to shadow at full native speed right away, you're probably going to fail, get frustrated, and you might even reinforce your own errors.
Slow it down.
Yes. Use the playback controls on your podcast app or PlayerMost, have them now, and set the speed to 0.75x or 75%. Practicing at a slightly reduced pace allows your brain and your mouth to keep up and to pay closer attention to the precise articulation and those tricky sound transitions.
Okay, that's a great tip. And step 4. This is the one about avoiding the mindless repetition, right?
This is the key. Step 4, intention-based repetition. Don't try to mimic everything perfectly all at once. It's impossible. Instead, set a clear, small intention for each practice session.
Like what?
For one round, you might focus only on matching the vowel sounds. For the next round, you might ignore the vowels and focus only on matching the intonation, the rising and falling pitch. Then you might do a round where you focus only on how the speaker links words together. This turns the practice from passive mimicry into targeted, deliberate skill development.
That is brilliant. So you're using the podcast as a scalpel to dissect the different parts of sound rather than just hitting yourself with a massive hammer of audio input.
Precisely. And this leads us right into the broader idea of active listening. You can't just treat the podcast as background noise while you're doing the dishes.
Okay, let's talk about the difference here. Active listening versus passive listening.
Passive listening is when the audio is playing, but your primary focus is somewhere else. You're driving, you're cleaning, you're scrolling on your phone. The input is happening, the sound is entering your ears, but your brain isn't actively analyzing it.
And active listening is?
Active listening is focused engagement. You are listening with the specific intent to understand, analyze, and react to the speaker's message.
The analogy we had was so good for this. Passive listening is like smelling food. You get a sense of it, but you're not getting any nutrition. Active listening is like digesting the food. It requires concentration, maybe taking notes, and reflection.
A perfect analogy, and that brings up a really practical, real-world scenario from Luke's English podcast. Luke advises learners that when a thought occurs to them while listening, a reaction, a counter-argument, a question, a new idea, they should pause the podcast right there and then and express that thought out loud in English.
Oh, that's the definition of output right there. You're using the podcast as a trigger, a prompt for your own spontaneous active speech.
Exactly. And speaking of output, the Source Conversations with Kate outlines a really detailed, high-efficacy cycle for using a single podcast episode. It's not just about listening once, it's a full-spectrum learning system.
Walk us through those output maximization steps.
Well, the full process involves several stages. First, previewing the key vocabulary and maybe the transcript before you even listen. Second, listening multiple times for different things, first for general meaning, then for specific details. And third, and this is the key output part, making a note of usable phrases and collocations that you feel you could naturally use in your own conversations.
Wait, hold on. You mentioned collocations. We've touched on this. But why are they so much more important than just learning single words?
This is the secret sauce to sounding natural and fluent. It's one of the biggest keys to breaking through that intermediate plateau. A collocation is a group of two or more words that habitually co-occur. They naturally go together more often than would be expected just by chance.
So like learning fast food is one single chunk of language instead of two separate words, fast and food.
Exactly. You learn to make a mistake, not to do a mistake. You learn heavy rain, not strong rain. Learning these chunks of language is far more effective than learning single words because it makes your speech sound more native and, crucially, more fluent. Your brain doesn't have to build the sentence from scratch every time. It can just pull out the pre-made chunk.
So a linguistic example would be?
In my notebook, I recorded the phrase to come to a decision, not just the single word decision, because that verb-noun collocation is so common and useful.
And that kind of deep contextual vocabulary work is essential for overcoming the intermediate plateau.
Yes. Let's define that. The intermediate plateau is that frustrating period of stagnation where a learner has conquered the basics. They're at a B1 or B2 level, and they can communicate, but their progress seems to just stop, despite their continued effort.
The analogy is so good for this. It's like running on a treadmill. You're putting in the effort, you're sweating, but you're staying in the same place.
A perfect description, and that is exactly where learners become discouraged. We need to talk about that word.
Okay, discouraged.
To be discouraged means feeling a loss of confidence or enthusiasm. You feel disheartened. And the story of Alejandro, the accent imitator, is the perfect real-world scenario for this.
Remind us of that story.
Alejandro was brilliant at imitating accents. He could perfectly copy a British accent, an American one, even what was described as the slow drawl of the South. He sounded amazing.
What about that?
But then one day, a girl just came up to him and asked a simple question. "How are you?" And he froze. He was petrified. His smile faded because he realized he could imitate sounds, but he couldn't actually speak English. He couldn't produce his own thoughts.
Wow. That must have been deeply, deeply discouraging.
It would be. And if he had remained discouraged, he would have quit. But he took that awful feeling as a sign that his methods were wrong, and he needed to switch his focus from pure imitation to actual communication practice.
I think that's the key takeaway.
Bro.
Don't be discouraged by old methods that have failed you. Switch to shadowing and contextual practice. I'm going to try to use podcasts as my indispensable tool from now on.
And that word is perfect here. Indispensable.
So how is that different from crucial, which we talked about earlier? They feel very similar.
They are very similar, but there's a subtle nuance. Crucial means vital or necessary, often at a specific moment. Indispensable emphasizes the difficulty or the impossibility of doing something without it. It carries a slightly stronger sense of being non-negotiable and irreplaceable over the long term.
So a map is crucial when you're at a crossroads, but water is indispensable for the entire journey.
An excellent way to distinguish them. And the source material states that podcasts offer authentic communication situations, which are indispensable in the learning of speaking skills. They are presented as a non-negotiable, irreplaceable necessity for this kind of learning.
Let's do a quick role play for indispensable. Imagine we're starting a new company. You're the tech expert. I'll start. Okay, I've got the business plan and I've hired a marketing person.
That's great, but what about our lead software developer? Have you found one yet?
Not yet. I've been focusing on sales. We can probably get by with freelancers for a while.
No, we can't. A skilled, dedicated lead developer is indispensable for a tech startup. Without one, our entire product will fail. They are not optional.
Okay, message received. They're indispensable. I'll make it my top priority.
I see. For true fluency and accuracy, those supporting materials, the podcasts, the transcripts, are absolutely indispensable.
They are. So we have the tools. Podcasts are indispensable because they provide authentic, comprehensible input. And we have the technique, shadowing with the transcript. Now let's move into a major decision that learners have to face. Which accent model should I choose to follow?
Yes, Section 2C. Accent consistency. This is so important. For solitary practice, especially for shadowing, choosing one consistent accent model is paramount. Your brain and your muscle memory will rebel if you try to mimic the British OR sound one day and the American T sound the next. You need to pick a lane.
Let's start with a deep dive into the term accent itself.
An accent is a distinctive mode of pronunciation of a language, especially one that's associated with a particular nation, a specific locality, or a social class.
Okay, so how is that different from a dialect? People use those words interchangeably sometimes.
They do, but they're different. Accent is strictly about the sound, the pronunciation, the intonation. A dialect is much broader. It includes the accent, but it also includes differences in grammar, vocabulary, and local expressions. For example, American English and British English are different dialects of English. Within Britain, a Scouse accent and a Geordie accent are different accents.
Got it. And our mother tongue can play a big role here, can it?
Absolutely. Your mother tongue, your native language, the one you learned from birth, can make one accent much easier to learn than another because of similar sound patterns.
So if my first language has very few rounded vowels, I might find the American English vowel system a bit easier to get my head around than the standard British one.
That's a very strong hypothesis, and it's often true. You need to choose the accent that aligns best not only with your goals, but also with your existing phonetic system. It's about finding the path of least resistance.
Now let's tackle the great divide. American English, A, versus British English, BE. Beyond just the sounds, the cultural communication style is a huge factor.
A huge factor. The core difference really reflects the culture. America, as a culture, tends to lean towards positivity, enthusiasm, and idealism. Britain, on the other hand, tends to favor the self-deprecating, the ironic, and the understated.
So if an American colleague asks you, how are you? The expected, almost automatic answer is something positive. Great, things are good.
Correct. But if a Brit asks you the same question and you answer, not too bad, or surviving, or can't complain, that is a perfectly normal, even positive response. It's that cultural tendency to be understated.
Okay, let's focus on that word, understated.
To be understated means to present or express something in a subtle and controlled way. It's not emphasized or exaggerated.
So if I know that the big company meeting was a massive, incredible success, and I just describe it as, yeah, it went okay, that's me being understated.
Exactly. It's a deliberate choice to minimize the emphasis, often to appear modest or to avoid sounding boastful.
Let's do an example loop for understated.
Sure. A formal one. The report, in its typically understated fashion, referred to the financial crisis as a period of economic adjustment. A casual one. For a guy who just won an Olympic medal, he was remarkably understated about it.
A funny one.
To say I was a little bit annoyed when the squirrel ate my prize-winning tomato is perhaps a bit understated.
A historical example.
Winston Churchill's understated comment after the Battle of Britain was, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few."
And philosophically.
There is a profound beauty in an understated act of kindness that seeks no recognition.
I love that. And this relates directly to the use of ironic language, especially in a British context.
It does. To be ironic means you're expressing your meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, and you're typically doing it for humorous or emphatic effect.
So if my British boss comes into the office on Monday morning, soaking wet from the rain, and says, well, that was a truly lovely walk to work, I need to understand that's irony. He means it was awful.
Precisely. It's a sophisticated conversational tool. The all-ears English source really emphasizes that for learners, understanding this cultural irony is vital to avoid serious misinterpretation.
Let's do a quick loop for ironic.
Okay, formal. It is ironic that the company's Simplicity software is so complicated that no one can figure out how to use it. Casual. Isn't it ironic? I finally saved up enough money to buy my dream car, and now I have nowhere to park it.
Funny example.
It was deeply ironic that the fire station burned down.
The classic. Historical.
There is a tragic irony in the fact that many soldiers who survived the war came home only to die in the influenza pandemic.
And a philosophical one.
The ironic nature of wisdom is that the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know.
Okay, now for the actual phonetic differences. The R sound is a big one.
A huge one. In most American English accents, the R sound is fully enunciated, or what linguists call rhotic. You hear it clearly at the end of words like car and in the middle of words like water.
Water. Got it.
In standard British English, or received pronunciation, it's often softer or non-rhotic. The R is often only pronounced before a vowel sound. So car sounds more like ka. This is a fundamental acoustic difference that you'll notice immediately.
And what about the T sound?
The AET sound is famous for often becoming a quick D sound, what's called a flap T when it's placed between two vowel sounds. A classic example is bottle of water, which can sound like bottle of water.
Whereas in BE.
In BE, the T is generally kept crisper, or sometimes it's replaced with a glottal stop, especially in London accents. So if you're shadowing, you have to choose one model and stick to it religiously to train your mouth correctly.
And you mentioned a neat trick to remember for words that came from French, the French loanword stress pattern.
Yes, this is a fun rule of thumb. It's not 100% consistent, but it's a good guide. For many words that English adopted from French, the UK tends to put the stress on the first syllable, whereas the US tends to put it on the last syllable.
Give me some examples.
Think of B-A-L-A-T. In the UK, you'll often hear B-A-lit. In the US, it's B-O-L-A, or B-R-O-C-H-U-R-E. UK, brochure. U.S. brochure. This really impacts the rhythm of your speech, and you need to be consistent with your chosen accent model.
Finally, let's do the vocabulary showdown. The high-frequency words that are just different and can cause real confusion.
Yeah.
The highest risk word has to be pants.
This is the one you absolutely cannot get wrong. In the U.S., pants means trousers, the things you wear on your legs. In the U.K., pants is common slang for underwear.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. So if you were learning BE and you're in London, you must use the word trousers when you're talking about formal leg wear. The potential for immediate and significant social embarrassment is very high if you mix those two up.
Noted. Always choose trousers when in the UK. What are some of the quick ones?
Sure. U.S. garbage or trash is UK rubbish. A U.S. trash can is a UK bin. U.S. restroom or bathroom is often a UK toilet or loo. And U.S. candy is UK sweets.
Okay, so we've discussed how to practice with shadowing and what accent model to choose. Let's wrap this all together by looking at the best resources out there to support this intense kind of practice.
Absolutely. Section 2D, the ecosystem of podcast resources.
For listeners who've chosen the American English path, ESL Pod is a major player, right? It focuses on daily and cultural American English.
It does, and its unique feature, which is perfect for beginners at shadowing, is the built-in slow dialogue repetition. It gives you a slow version and a normal speed version. However, you have to remember that those indispensable transcripts, what they call learning guides, require a paid membership, which is around $29 a month.
And for more advanced learners who want that authentic, fast AE, they can turn to something like Stuff You Should Know, or SYKY.
Yes, SYKY is fantastic for C1, C2 learners. It offers a massive library of authentic, advanced content on every topic imaginable: true crime, history, science. It's excellent for expanding your vocabulary range and getting used to native speed, and many episodes do offer transcripts.
Okay, switching gears to the British English-focused resources. BBC's 6-Minute English feels like a goldmine for intermediate learners, especially if you're on a budget.
It is an absolutely fantastic resource. The concise 6-minute duration is perfect for a focused shadowing session. But its unique value proposition is its accessibility. The transcripts, the vocabulary lists, and all the supporting materials are available completely free of charge.
That is a major advantage for budget-conscious learners who are prioritizing accuracy, especially since we've established that transcripts are non-negotiable for proper shadowing.
It's a game changer. Then for more advanced BE, you have Luke's English Podcast, or LEP. He focuses on more advanced skills like discourse management, storytelling, and deep grammar episodes. Luke uses a freemium model where the main audio is free, but the very detailed transcripts and worksheets are part of his paid membership.
And finally, what about resources that are more variable or targeted at specific needs?
For that, you have a few great options. First, Culip's ESL Podcast. It's focused on North American English, but its real value is its progression path. It offers different series, from simplified speech for beginners to the normal speed chatterbox series for advanced listeners. This allows a learner to move through different difficulty levels without having to change the resource they're used to.
And News in Slow English, NIS, is the ultimate example of a resource that's built entirely around Krashen's theory of comprehensible input.
It really is. It delivers simplified global news at a slow, modified pace, which ensures that the input remains highly comprehensible for learners. And it also includes dedicated language sections that cover specific grammar topics or common English expressions like to get out of hand.
This is a perfect bridge into our final course section. This is about thinking bigger. Section 2E, Systems Beyond Skills. Luke Thompson from LEP highlights that true mastery requires focusing on the 4 language systems, not just the 4 skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
This is the holistic view of language, and it's so important for breaking through that plateau. The 4 systems are grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and the one that is most often overlooked: discourse management.
Let's break that one down. Discourse management, what is it? It sounds very academic.
It does, but the concept is simple. Discourse management is about how you organize your ideas together to produce speaking or writing that is clear, logical, and easy for the listener to follow. It goes beyond just making grammatically correct sentences.
The analogy we had here was about building a house.
Yes, sentence-level grammar ensures that each individual brick you make is square and strong. But discourse management is the architectural plan. It ensures that the entire house flows logically, that the rooms are connected properly, and that the whole structure makes sense.
So it's the ability to tell a coherent story or summarize a complex idea using those little linking words like however, furthermore, or therefore.
Exactly. And a great real-world scenario for practicing this is to practice storytelling and summarizing a podcast episode out loud. When you try to summarize a 10-minute podcast to a friend in just 1 minute, you are forced to use those discourse markers to logically organize your thoughts. It's a fantastic exercise that drastically improves your overall speaking structure.
And that kind of contextual focus brings us right back to vocabulary acquisition. We've learned the danger of just staring at lists. The key is learning collocations.
Absolutely. Never just memorize the word happy. Instead, record and practice its collocations. Phrases like sheer joy, over the moon, or radiant mood. Focusing on these chunks gives you the nuance and the depth that you need to push past that B2 level ceiling and finally break the intermediate plateau.
Which also requires integrating reading. Tell us quickly about graded readers as a tool.
Graded readers are fantastic. They are books that have been adapted for language learners using vocabulary and grammar that are appropriate for specific proficiency levels, from A1 all the way to C1. The analogy is that they're like training wheels for books.
Training wheels, I love it.
They allow you to practice the motion of reading a full, complex narrative and get that amazing feeling of finishing a book, but without the frustration of unadapted native-level text. They build confidence and vocabulary at the same time.
That wraps up the core of our deep dive. I feel like we've built a complete system. Now we can have a little fun with our common mistakes segment.
I'm ready. Let's correct some common errors.
Okay, we're going to focus on 3 pitfalls that often lead to embarrassment or confusion based on all the cultural and vocabulary differences we just discussed.
Let's do it.
Mistake 1, confusing BE clothing terminology. High-risk embarrassment. Okay, Jamie, tell me if I'm getting this right. I'm in London for a business trip, and I need a new pair of smart trousers. So I go into a U.S. chain store that's there, and I ask the assistant for a pair of smart pants.
Oh no, Charlie, you've just walked right into the classic trap. That's a textbook learner mistake with potentially hilarious or embarrassing consequences.
What did I do wrong?
When you ask a British person for smart pants, you are asking them for stylish new underwear. In the UK, the word pants almost exclusively refers to undergarments. You absolutely must ask for trousers. That is a classic, high potential for embarrassment error.
Noted. Trousers in the UK. Pants or underwear. Okay. Mistake 2. Misusing a time-saving idiom. We saw the idiom, to make a long story short, highlighted in one of the BE resources. Before we do the mistake, let's do a deep dive on the idiom itself.
Good idea. To make a long story short is a discourse marker. It's a phrase you use to signal to your listener that you are about to skip the boring or unnecessary details of a long story and get straight to the final point or the conclusion. It's a promise of brevity.
So it promises that things are going to speed up. Okay, here's the wrong example I heard someone use recently. To make a long story short, I will now present the 45 slides of my detailed market analysis.
Correction. That is the exact opposite of what the idiom promises. You've completely broken the conversational contract. The phrase must precede the short conclusion or summary, not introduce a lengthy, detailed explanation. If you say that, your audience expects the very next thing you say to be the final one-sentence answer, not a 45-slide presentation.
It's a broken promise. I like that. Conversational contract. Okay, mistake 3, overanalyzing cultural understatement. This goes back to that BE communication style and a phrase we saw in news and slow English, to get out of hand.
A very common and useful idiom. To get out of hand means to become difficult or impossible to control. It means something has become messy, chaotic, or extreme. It's often used in the context of a situation where management or control has failed.
Okay, here is the learner's assumption. My British boss comes back from a meeting and says to me, that marketing meeting really got out of hand. I'm thinking, wow, things must have gotten violent. Someone probably threw a chair.
Correction. And that is overanalyzing the UK's understated tone. For a BE speaker, if a meeting got out of hand, it usually just means they couldn't stick to the agenda, people started talking over each other, and the discussion became inefficient, disorganized, or chaotic.
So it's chaos, but not necessarily violence.
Not at all. It's an expression of chaos, but usually not physical violence. If someone had actually thrown a chair, they would use a much more literal and serious description. The phrase out of hand lives at the difficult to manage end of the chaos spectrum, and it reinforces that cultural preference for understated reporting.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive. I feel like you, the listener, now have the data, the techniques, and the vocabulary to really transform your listening time into tangible speaking fluency.
Well, let's test your attention, shall we? It's time for the pop quiz.
Oh, boy. Okay, bring it on. I hope I've retained all the crucial details.
Question 1. Which English accent is often considered easier for beginners to adopt, primarily due to its widespread influence in global media?
That would be American English, or AE, just because it's so exposed through movies and TV shows.
Correct. Question 2. If a podcast is designed to provide you with input that is just slightly above your current level of competence, what is the term from Krashen's theory that describes this specific type of input?
That is the input hypothesis, and the term is I+1, or comprehensible input.
Perfect. And the final question. According to our expert report, which specific support material is considered absolutely non-negotiable for effective solitary shadowing practice?
The non-negotiable, completely indispensable requirement is a transcript. Without it, you can't accurately self-correct your pronunciation rhythm and linking sounds. You're just guessing.
Excellent job. You passed.
Phew. Okay, let's quickly summarize the biggest takeaways from this massive deep dive for everyone listening.
All right, the top 3 concepts to remember are, number 1, the input-output combination is the foundation of everything. You need that authentic, comprehensible input from Crescent combined with the active production that Swain talks about.
Number 2,
Number 2, shadowing is the key practical technique for solitary speaking practice. It's how you convert passive listening into active muscle memory. And number 3, transcripts, especially the free ones like those offered by the BBC, are indispensable for maximizing the accuracy of that practice.
and let's pull out 5 of the core vocabulary words and concepts we really dissected today.
Our top 5 takeaways would be fluency, remembering that it's about smooth flow, not speed. Authentic, always seeking out real natural language, not textbook dialogues. Understated, understanding that subtle British communication style. Collocations, learning word chunks like make a mistake instead of single words. And finally, the intermediate plateau, knowing what it is and how this deep work is the way to break through it.
Before we go, let's leave everyone listening with a micro challenge, a tiny, actionable task to put all of this into practice today.
Here it is. Your challenge is to go find a 6-minute BBC Learning English episode online, download the free transcript, and commit to just 2 full minutes of the shadowing technique. For these 2 minutes, don't worry about the meaning of the words. Your only intention should be to focus entirely on matching the speaker's rhythm and the way they link their sounds together. This is how you start to train that crucial motor memory needed for fluency.
That is a fantastic challenge. Do not wait for the perfect speaking partner. The resources you need are available right now for free to start building your speaking confidence today.
And please don't forget to like and subscribe to English Unlimited podcast. That small action really helps us reach more learners who are fighting that same intermediate plateau.
I'm Charlie. See you next time.
And I'm Jamie.